So I will start with an introduction to give people time to join. So my name is Anna. I work as a QA engineer at Trinca. And today I will talk a little bit about automation with Cypress. And while I was researching to put this together, I came across several articles, both saying that one side saying that testing was supposed to be all automated and we shouldn't have manual testers anymore. And the other side saying that quality isn't really about testing, but about processes and culture, which is something I totally agree with. So I will be talking about a little bit about who I am, a little bit about the company I work with, how our goals are kind of aligned. I will talk a bit about quality assurance, not only testing, and how it affects our product and quality overall, and what are my 2 cents about it. And I will also be then coding a little bit and showing how we use automation on our day-to-day. The architecture that we use, it isn't the only architecture out there, but it's what works for us. And I will show why. So as I said before, that's the agenda. So my name is Anna. As I said, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I've been working with quality for 3 years now, a year and a half with performance engineering as an intern, and then now 2 years with functional testing, front-end testing, and I did a bit of UX testing. And a little bit about my journey is I started as a front-end developer on my university's data processing center. So I was the user and the developer of the internship program. So I knew exactly what were my pains when I was using it, what were the problems that we had, but I also knew how the system was built and the problems that we had as developers. So with time, I started developing, I started liking a lot to test and to make sure that we weren't making people's life harder. I really, truly believe that if we can't make people's life more enjoyable with our software, we should at least not make it harder. And that's something that I take to my daily job, hopefully. And I am happy to work in a company that does share the same values. Trinca is actually really focused on design. We have a design by project at least, and they're really present and they really talk with development. In a project that I work on now, we have daily meetings. And this is really important because the designers are, as QAs, very detail-oriented by profession, and they have the knowledge to make softwares easier to use. So when we work together as a whole team and we not only talk about things, but we are able to talk about the decisions we made and how it can improve or how it can be done better, and not only take from a technical side, but also from a human standpoint. And how can this improve people's lives? I think that's our main goal as software developers, testers, and designers. For our organization, we use Scrum and dual tracking. Dual tracking is something that I discovered when I went to work at Trinca. And this means actually that the designers are a few or maybe one sprint ahead of development. So they have time to validate, to check the screens, and to make sure that we are delivering everything that we can, the best way that we can. Of course, this doesn't always work, but as I said, as a team, we can always talk and learn from each other. And one thing that really changed my view about designers is the constant contact with the user and whoever will use the software. Because as QAs, we do have a lot of empathy. We try to put ourselves in the user's shoes, but we need to know who the users are. And that's a really important part of it. So software quality and how to assure it. I've read an article one of these days. I'm sorry I didn't bring it, but the article was about how only testing is actually a losing strategy, because testing is actually the last thing you do. You can have unit testing and etc., but the testing is only done when you have code to do it on. So quality starts much, much sooner. It's about culture, and culture, I looked it up, and it's actually the actions of a group of individuals. And this is something that we really have. When you have teams, Scrum teams, development teams, etc., you need to understand that you are developing this software, this hardware, whatever you're developing, you're doing it to stay alive in the long haul. So you want your code to be readable, you want your code to be easy to maintain. And we also want that in software automation, but it's a little different. Software quality is assured by peer review. Software quality is assured by having a team that's constantly in contact with each other, because you have verification and validation, and these are two different things. When I verify the software, we have this user story, and then I check if what was developed does meet the business requirements that were put in there by our PO, by our PM. And whenever whenever we validate, we are actually making sure that we delivered what the user actually needs, and what they need and what they want isn't always clear and isn't always something that we can discuss. We need to have discoveries, we need to have several meetings, we need to talk to people and understand the reality. For example, a project I'm working with now, we are doing something to connect enterprises and people. But these people actually, where they live, they don't necessarily have house numbers. So when we are discussing how address should be inputted in the platform, this is something that we had to have in mind, even though this isn't our reality. And software quality is about, and the bottom line is empathy. Empathy for whoever is going to write it, whoever is going to read it, and whoever is going to maintain it. So if you're only investing in testing, you're not really doing it right. You need to have documentation. You need to have people who take care of it. Then we go to the testing, because it is something really important. Software should be tested, and it should be tested by people who didn't develop it. And this is something that a lot of people disagree, but I think it's true, because whenever I develop a code, I know how to make it work. I know what breaks it, or I may not know, which is another problem. But I usually know how to break it. I usually know how to use it. So whenever I'm testing something, I do think about how to break it. But I also try to think as the user. For example, we do try SQL injections, but how much will I try depends on whoever is the audience for that product. We chose Cypress because the development works on JavaScript. So we have help. Whenever I'm late in testing, I will make sure to contact my development colleagues and let them know that if I need it, I will ask for help, and they're always there. Cypress is easy to use. In 2 weeks, I was already making tests that I didn't think I would. And the tests are really fast. We have about 170 tests now, and they run on 5 minutes, I think. Depends on my connection, of course, but 5 to 6 minutes. And to me, something really impressive, because I used Selenium before, and it was really happy. How we organize things, one thing I want to make very clear is this is what works for us. There are probably 100 different architectures online. You can look it up. But I really like the way things are structured right now, because they make it clear, and the interactions between different classes is clear, and the object-oriented programming thing, we follow that to a toe. So this makes it reusable. And one thing that we always have in mind is that our code is more read than it's written. So whenever we're developing things, we have to develop for whoever is going to use it or maintain it. It's important. Software testing development is also development, is a development project, and we should also follow the guidelines. So in the fixture folder goes the data used in the test in JSON format. And this is just an example. I think most people know what JSON is. But So let's say we are changing logins. I have to change it only in one place and not on 10 different places. And I also don't have to change each time in each class. In the integration folder comes the BDD files and the steps for each instructor. I will show that afterwards. But here we chose Gherkin because Gherkin gives us the opportunity to have a live documentation of whatever's being done. Whenever I'm developing the steps, I make sure that I have something that talks to the business rules. And I make sure that we have this live documentation because whoever is going to maintain it, it's hard to have time to remember to change the documentation or change or look for it even. But when you see the task break, and this is so easy to fix, you have this access and you can visually see the business rules changing. And to me, that's a really nice thing. So this is how we work with I think everyone who just got working just like this. But here above, we have the feature that we are testing. And here I can tell a little to whoever is going to read this, what I want to do with it and what's my goal with this whole class. On the background part, I tell the software where I want to go to test. So for example, if I'm testing a flow, I have page 1, page 2, and page 3. If I want to test page 3 on that given part, I will navigate through 1 and 2 to make sure that I reach 3, make sure that I'm on the right page, and then I can start to do the actions that I want to do with it. I have here 2 examples that I will show on the coding part afterwards just to make sure I've shown how it works. When using Gherkin, we have given, when, and then. On the given, we give the background, where we want to go, what's the page we're testing, how we navigate to it. On the when, we usually have the actions, button clicking, hovering, etc. And on the then is what we expect to happen. So whenever I'm the click button page, I do expect the header to be, let's get clicking on this particular website. And on scenario outline is a second option to developer tasks. We have when the user clicks the button, then the model appears. So here I have, in examples, I have the values that will be used to replace these variables. And then how, when it's shown to me, it's shown as model appears to the web element button is clicked. So we want to make sure that in Cypress we have, I like the interface, it's a personal opinion, but I really do like it. So we are able to read what's happening, and that's something that's really valuable when you're looking into it. And then I have the steps, which uses regular expressions to read the feature document. So for each phrase that I have, I will have a little function that reads it and then does the proper steps. On the page object, we have the mapping of the objects that the automation will interact with, and also the functions that might be reused. So if I have a login function that I know that I will have to use over and over again, it goes in the page objects class, just so I don't have to write it over and over again. One thing that we really strive to is to reuse our code. So I actually injured my hand doing yoga. So to not take long, I will show pre-written code. I'm sorry. But if you have any questions, please let me know and I will do my best to answer them. So before we start, we have to set up a base URL. And I'm going to use WebDriver University, which is a website that I actually really like to test my skills. And the page that I'm going to use specifically is this one. So I wanted to do something that would use the fixture file and something that would use the wildcard. So we're going to take it kind of slow, but whenever I'm learning something new, I like to have someone show me the ropes. So what I want to do now is I'm going to put my name in this first name text area. As you can see, I've already done it. So the first thing I do is I press F12, and then using the inspector, I go to my element and I try to find something that can link me to the exact part of the screen or software that I want to interact with. In my case, I want to interact with this first name. So I will use this name, and I make sure that whenever I'm hovering around, I don't have something similar. But if I wanted to take on, let's say, this table, I would use the ID. The only thing that we have to make sure is that we don't have duplicate IDs. And if we do, I would recommend talking to the development, because we can always use contains and first and etc., but it's iffy, something might go wrong. So, okay, I'm going to use this name, first name. So I'm going to put in my page object, and I'm going to map it. Then I'm going to come to my .feature file, and then I'm going to put what I want to do with it. I want to test the data table page. I will be on the data table page. I want to navigate to it. So whenever we use background, we are able to go to, for example, if I have another scenario in here, it will use the same given. So the same background, I don't have to write it over and over again. But if I have another place I want to navigate, or let's say another login I want to use, if I put given within the scenario, I'm also able to navigate to wherever it is. And after this .feature file is created, I will create a folder. So if I put the name data table, my folder has to be called data table so it doesn't lose itself. And within this data table folder, it will look for these phrases on the steps.js. To configure the file, we put import, and we import these commands. And we also import our data object file. Then what I do on the given is I open a Cypress server, I visit the website, so I complement the base URL I put on the cypress.json. And whenever I was opening a WebDriver automation website, I was getting an uncaught exception that would fail my tests. So I dealt with it on the testing. And then I have the other phrase, the user is able to write. So I use get to come to my text field, and then I type it. So what would you do if it was your first time running the Cypress automation? You would do npm install and npm install Cypress. I will not do it because my network's kind of slow. And then we would use npm to run and open the Cypress interface, which is this one. And this gives me access to all the .feature files I have here. I'm able to run all of them if I want to. I'm also able to record my runs and make sure I have this video. But for now, I'm only gonna use the data table one. So it's gonna let me know that it's being controlled by an automated software testing tool. And here I have how many passed, how many failed, and I'm able to refresh it. So we visited, and it typed my name. Another cool thing about Cypress is that you have screenshots of wherever you were when the action happened. So here you can see my name is not typed, and now it is. But let's say that's like a login. I want to use it elsewhere. So what am I going to do is I'm going to put within the data table, I'm going to create a function. Let's say fill first name. And then within my page objects, I'm going to use this function. So let's say that my name might change. It wouldn't, but I wanted to use the JSON example. So I'm going to put my second name in here, and I have this name field and my name. So coming back to the page objects part, within the features folder, I will look for something called exams.json, and then it will become like a data structure, and I will be able to access the variables within it. So I will do the same thing that I done before, but now accessing the JSON folder. Another cool thing about Cypress is whenever you save a new file, it will automatically rerun the tests. So you won't have to wait for it to reopen. If you guys have any questions, if I'm not being clear, please let me know and I will try to change it. But as you can see now, my other name is in here. So about the wildcards, which are actually a really cool thing. Let me just open it. So I would use scenario outline and not scenario, just so Cypress know that it's expecting examples and it's expecting things. So the user writes name on the page, and then this variable name will be replaced by these values that we put. So if name was correlated to any other variable, it would be on this other column. And now what I have to do is I have to create the right steps to interpret and kind of read this. So I will come back to my steps.js and I will use, this is a regular expression. We have to keep that in mind. So I will use a wildcard and then I will use the name that I've given on my .feature file. And I will then create a function because we want to keep this as clear as possible. And I don't know, we might reuse it. So if I had more than one variable, they would come in order and they would be named in order also. So let's save it. And when I come here, what's going to do is it's going to use the variable name on a switch. That's what we use. I don't recommend using if because it's, I don't know, if you have, we had a rule in my competitive programming class that if you had more than 4 tabs within your code, it wasn't readable, it wasn't nice. So we have to always remember this is also a software development project and we have to be as careful as we would be in one. So take a moment to name your variables, take a moment to make sure everything is clear. So fill first name, okay, might be clear enough, but it might not. So we always have to make sure that we are paying attention to these kinds of things. So in case I'm filling the first name, I will here use get to go to this text field, and then I'm going to type my name. And then if we're going to last, I'm going to use the get also to type my last name. So it's running. And the last thing I want to show is something that I think really separates Cypress from the Selenium frameworks I was used to use, is that the errors are really clear. So it lets you know exactly what's missing. So here it tells me that in this class, I don't have this function, and it also tells me if I don't have the right steps. So it makes it really easy to debug and to make sure we aren't doing anything wrong, and we're using our testing time well. So that was basically it.